皆さんはイギリスの宗教は何かと聞かれたとき、どの宗教がメインだと思いますか？何世紀にもわたりイングランドをはじめイギリスはキリスト教の宗派の一つ、イングランド国教会が国のアイデンティティとしてありました。しかし今日、イングランドにおけるキリスト教徒の方々は少数派に回り、教会、そして信者の数も減少傾向にあるとのこと。中でもイングランド国教会の衰退が最も著しく危機感を覚える数字が出てきています。かつてイングランドを定義づけた宗教がなぜこのような状態に置かれているのか調べてみました。
皆さんこんにちは、シンです。今回の動画はイングランド国教会チャーチオブイングランドについての動画になるんですけれども、皆さんはどういった印象をお持ちでしょうか？イギリスはですね、1000年以上も前からキリスト教の国としてあったんですけれども、もともとローマ教会に属していたのが途中から分離してですね、イングランド国教会っていうので、独立したそうなんですよね。で、イングランド国教会ってローマ教会から独立はしてるんですけれども、とはいえキリスト教の国ではあるので、そういった文化だったり習慣っていうのが、現在も日々の生活で浸透していて、例えば結婚式だったり洗礼式、あとはお葬式とか、いろいろなところでそのキリスト教の文化というのが今でも根強く残っているような状況です。で、今僕が来ているのはイングランド南東部にあるケント州のカンタベリーという町に来てるんですけれども、こちらがカンタベリーの大聖堂になっていて、イングランド国教会の総本尊だと言われています。見てください皆さん、この作り。なんかハリーポッターに出てきそうな感じの場所になっております。
イングランド国教会が生まれたのは16世紀のお話。当時、イングランド王のヘンリー8世が妻キャサリン・オブ・アラゴンとの離婚を望んだものの、ローマ教皇がこれを却下したのが始まり。これをきっかけにヘンリー8世はローマ教会と決別し、自らをイングランド国教会の最高位に位置づける。イングランド国教会は王権と結びついており、政治、教育、法律とも深く関わる存在となっていきました。2021年の調査によると、イングランドとウェールズにおけるキリスト教徒と答えた数が人口の半数を下回り、10年前から大きく減少しています。そしてイングランド国教会においては、信者の数は2010年の 20% から 12% にまで落ちています。対照的に無宗教と答えた方々の割合は急増し、現在イングランドとウェールズでは 37% となっています。かつて国の道徳の中心とも呼ばれたイングランド国教会は、多くの教区が閉鎖の危機に直面しています。
で、現地の方から少しお話が聞けるというので、今リアさんに、来てもらってます。
So, in terms of the cultural shift, I think it's less common for people to want to sit down on a Sunday morning and prioritize going into a local church and singing hymns that feel very antiquated when there's a lot of other things contending for their time. And so the younger generation struggle to follow in their parents' footsteps, and I think a lot of people associate church with something that you do at culturally important events like Easter and Christmas. Now, the one thing I would say on the cultural shifts is actually there has been a huge revival in Gen Z and Gen Alpha in terms of church participation, and many of their churches are getting huge numbers of attendees. But in the smaller communities, so one of the amazing things about the UK is every single community, village, hamlet, has a church of its own, and it's all been district to ensure that there is a place of worship that anyone can attend. And they are where they're seeing the dwindling populations.
で、教会側からすると信者離れっていうのが一つの課題としてあるんですけれども、教会側自身課題というのを抱えていて、ここ最近スキャンダルっていうのに見舞われてるんですよね。
You know, we have had so many scandals where churches have failed to acknowledge where they had responsibility to preserve or to protect or to not cause harm. And then once that harm is discovered, to sweep it under the rug and pretend that it hasn't happened. And, you know, survivors have really struggled to get justice, and that has happened on such a significant scale that we have had many documentaries and investigative podcasts, and many individuals who have been in high positions of responsibility have used that to be able to protect themselves from any kind of prosecution or any kind of accountability. And I think if you know that that's going on in your local church, why would you go? Because if you can't trust the leaders to protect the people in the congregation, why would you want to be one of the people in the congregation? Or worse, if you know somebody who has been hurt and who has been affected and you've walked with them through them trying to challenge and get justice, I just don't feel like that's going to be a situation where you can respect the leadership.
イングランド国教会に関連する数あるスキャンダルの中、最も深刻だと言われているのは、教会関係者による子供や未成年に対しての心的、そして性的虐待。教会トップのカンタベリー大主教は、これら事実を数年にわたり把握していたものの、これら内容を隠蔽したとされていて、適切な対応はされてきませんでした。その後、事件が明るみに出ると、カンタベリー大主教のジャスティン・ウェルビー氏は謝罪。しかし、職位の辞任を拒み、周りからの反発を受けました。最終的にジャスティン・ウェルビー氏の辞任が決まり、先月新たにディムサラ・マラーリーがカンタベリーの大主教として指名されました。なお、女性がこの役職に選ばれるのは初めてのことです。
I do think that the scandals themselves expose a leadership vacuum, but I think it's more about this culture that we have in Britain of prioritizing self-preservation over doing the right thing. And it strikes me that the Church of England's scandals are much worse than all of the other institution scandals because of what they say that they believe. And so if you're in a situation where you believe that moral superiority and being a person that is ethical and a person of integrity is what you stand for, and then these sorts of leadership challenges and governance challenges persist, it really does cause you to question the integrity of the institution. And I think we're constantly looking for better examples of leadership in the UK. But I think it's a collective responsibility. We all need to do better. It's not just one person who's failing.
で教会側における変化についてなんですけれども、現在全体的に聖職者の数が減っていってるっていうふうに言われてるんですよね。もちろんその聖職者の高齢化っていうのも一つ理由として挙げられるんですけれども、それよりも言われているのが信者全体の数が減っちゃっているがゆえ、財政基盤が小さくなっちゃって、運営費を賄えず教会を閉めざるを得ないような状態になっているそうなんですよね。
Now, one of the things I find quite interesting about this is that obviously our communities are struggling with loneliness epidemics, a lack of sense of community, an inability to be surrounded by people who can make up the shortfall if your family doesn't live nearby or if you have accessibility needs. And the church historically has provided that kind of support. So it's quite striking to me that people haven't chosen to respond to that by greater church participation.
そして今僕はロンドンユーストン駅近くのセントメアリーズ教会というところに来てるんですけれども、後ろがその教会になります。こちらの教会はですね、イングランド国教会の教会になるんですけれども、ここもですね一時期閉鎖の危機に追い込まれたそうで、確か外壁の補修作業かなんかでお金がなくて閉鎖をするかしないかみたいな話があって、最終的に資金を確保して今多分工事していると思うんですけれども、こういった教会がやっぱり現在あるそうです。で全国各地にですね、閉鎖される教会っていうのがあるんですけれども、そういった教会は売却されたりしてるんですよね。で売却された教会というのは一般の住宅として使われてたり、自治体だったりレストランだったりパブだったり、いろいろな形に生まれ変わっているような状況です。そしてロンドンの中心のメイフェアというところにメルカトという施設があるんですけれども、観光名所の一つになっているんですが、もともとイングランド国教会の一つだったんですよね。なんですけれども資金困難に陥って閉鎖して、今ではフードコートとして生まれ変わっています。なのでこういった教会とかは結構典型的な事例なんじゃないかなと思っています。で教会が新たな形で再生していくっていうのはすごくいいお話ではあるんですけれども、教会関係者含め信者の方々からすると少し複雑な気持ちなんじゃないかなというふうに思います。で聖職者の方からも少しお話が聞けるっていうので、ちょっと聞きに行きたいと思います。
Thank you so much for your time today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Oh, my name is Veronica.I am a minister for the Church of England. I have done this for 10 years this year, and I look after 4 small, very rural and lovely communities and churches. I've always had a strong faith since I was young, due to my best friend taking me along to church. For many people, over the years, waxed and waned, and when I had my children, I sort of came back to the church after many years of, just working and paying bills and living life as people do. But I came back to the church because I wanted the children christened, baptized, and I started to get involved in the church quite a bit more than I had been doing. Then I went to do an inquiry course, which is something that I wanted to do for a long time. And the particular one I did was Alpha. And I really, really enjoyed it. And it brought back a lot of the memories about faith that I remember when I was a child. So I wanted to explore that. So I set off on a little journey, encouraged by my then vicar, who just encouraged me to go and do various bits and things, and a course here and some reading there. And then several years later, I felt quite a strong call. So it wasn't that I decided to take things further. I felt a strong call to the church. I felt God might be calling me to do something more in the church. So I didn't see anything wrong with just following the process and seeing what would happen. I decided that if any doors were open, I'd walk through them. And if any doors shut at any time, I'd stop. But the doors kept opening, so I kept walking through them. And I had no idea that I would be doing what I'm doing now.
現在教会内では LGBTQ+ の受け入れや女性司教の是非などをめぐり一種の分断が起きており、信者の間でも似たような分断が起きているそう。一部評論家は教会が変化に適応するのが遅すぎたと指摘。若い世代を取り込めなかったことが衰退の主な理由だと考えているようです。
For all transparency, I am a Christian and I do share many of the views of traditional doctrine in the Church of England, but it has not been very flexible when it comes to considering how to be open and inclusive for all walks of faith.
I think it has been. I think there's a history of the Church, the Roman Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, with very much that male presence. With the changes in the Church of England over the last few decades and them allowing women to minister, it's definitely more acceptable now, especially in the West. I think some people wrongly believe that there's more women than men now, but that's not true. There are still far more men than women ministering, particularly where I worship and lead worship in rural communities. I've not faced any major opposition. I think I remember one person refusing to take Holy Communion from me because they didn't believe that a woman should be administering communion. But I think that was the only time. And with this job, being a minister, this vocation, it's a lot about building trust up between people. So I've been here a while now in the parishes I serve, and I've formed good relationships, and hopefully I've formed a good amount of trust between us all.
で専門家の間ではイングランド国教会というのは衰退傾向にあるよねっていうのは、一致している意見ではあるんですけれども、それを悲観的に捉える方々もいれば楽観的に捉える方々がいますと。で悲観的にそれを捉えている方々というのは、地域とのつながり、あとは共通の価値観がなくなりつつあるよね、これってちょっと良くないよねっていうふうに考えていて、楽観的に見ている方々に関しては宗教というのは一つの選択肢でしかなくて、個々が選択すればいいよね、これってある意味多様性のある社会だよねっていうふうに捉えているんですよね。
I think there are some people in the church who really believe in reconciliation and believe that transformation is possible. But as I say, it's an institution, not a person. And so some of the challenges it is beset with, it will always be beset with. And so the question is, how much are we expecting from an institution rather than the people that lead it?
で現在教会というのは地域の方々となるべくつながりを保とうといろいろな工夫をしています。例えばその日曜礼拝の様子を SNS でライブ配信したり、あとはその礼拝における音楽を少し現代的なもの、ちょっとポップな感じにしてたりしてますし、こういった工夫をしているのってすごいいいお話なんですけれども、これが果たして結果につながるのかすごく気になるところではあります。
Over the summer at Glastonbury, all of the millennials found themselves singing songs that they sang at school. And they all knew all the words to all of these Christian songs, because it used to be that in England, the Christian faith was part of the primary school curriculum, and so they would know things like "Shine, Jesus, shine." They would know "Lord, I lift your name on high." They would know "The Servant King," and so all of these millennials were singing over Glastonbury all of these songs that they learned in assembly. They were all praising Jesus. They had no idea or no intention of praising Jesus, but it was so ingrained in their, I guess, self-development and their early years that it formed a part of them. That is what keeps people connected to an institution like the Church of England, and that is what we have lost over the last few years, is a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose. And so I think I'm hopeful that there could be a revival. That takes time, but I also think that if you look at the spread of Christianity globally, England specifically is an outlier. I think many people are coming to the Christian faith worldwide, and so I don't think it's the Christian faith that's the problem. I think it's lack of trust in the institution.
そして僕自身無宗教ではあるので、その宗教に対しての在り方だったり存在意義って僕から語れるものはないんですけれども、以前サピエンス全史っていう本を読んだことがあって、その本の中で書いてあったのは、宗教は人々を団結させるために生まれたものだっていうような文言が書いてあったんですよね。で、確かに言われてみれば十字軍のお話とかもありますし、この長い歴史の中で、宗教戦争ってね、いろんなところで起こってたわけですから、人々を団結させる力っていうのはあるんじゃないかなと思っています。
で今回このトピックスを選んだ理由としては、街中歩いてたりすると街のあちこちでキリスト教の勧誘っていうのがあるんですよね。でそれ見た時に僕韓国のイメージが湧いて、以前僕韓国行ったことあるんですけれども、結構キリスト教の勧誘があるんですよね。で実際韓国でもそのキリスト教信者の信者離れっていうのが起こっていて、いろいろ調べてみたらですね、実際イギリスでも、キリスト教徒における信者離れっていうのが起こってるんですよね。で僕も今回ですね、街歩いててこういうものを渡されまして、なんかキリスト教の教えがいろいろ書いてあるんですけれども、これが、今回この動画を作ろうと思ったきっかけになります。
The biggest changes have been in society as a whole. Technology. Wow. And it continues to change, doesn't it? It's very interesting watching what's happening in society and then looking and seeing what's happening in the church. The church is usually behind society. So I think at the moment, over the last few years, churches have realised that we need to change. We need to change some of the things we're doing. Interesting point, God doesn't change. The way we worship God has to change sometimes. And it has to change with what is going on in society. I think for a long time the Church of England has remained very faithful to its roots and will always do so. But at the same time, there's this feeling at the moment of being more creative, a little bit more fluid, and I love that. I love that feeling that we can just be a little bit more imaginative. I don't always throw scriptures out, but in one of the books of scripture it tells us that we are to dream and we are to have visions and we are to be creative. So to allow that to happen, you have to sort of create those spaces that we can do that in. And I feel at the moment it's a really interesting time where we are being more imaginative in the church and perhaps allowing God's Spirit to lead us a little bit more than we have done for a few decades.
So is it fair to say it's overall a rather positive, in fact a very positive change that you're seeing?
I think it's very positive at the moment, yeah. And it's hard work. Any kind of vocational work is always hard work, no matter what vocation it is, nursing, teaching, ministry. But it's very rewarding at the moment. It's very rewarding because I think we can just feel something happening, which is really good.
でイギリス国教会における信者離れを防ごうといろいろ対策をしてるっていうのを動画の中でご紹介したんですけれども、今後どうなるのか非常に気になります。皆さんはどう思いますでしょうか？
I think the broader question for British society is, can you have your cake and eat it too? Because we like tradition and we want to maintain the traditions, but we don't want to have any association with what those traditions mean and the underlying doctrine that supports it and has brought it into fruition. And so I think there will come a reckoning as to can we put faith at the heart of the nation again, and what would it look like to do that? And I know there were lots of conversations with when Rishi Sunak was Prime Minister because of his Hindu faith, and Keir Starmer is married to Victoria, who's Jewish, and has been very clear about him not having a faith. And I think historically that's always been a point of tension for what is the role of religion in public life, and is Britain a Christian country? And if you look at the demographics now, Britain is not a Christian country because we are so cosmopolitan. There are many faiths. But I think my point is that faith has to be personal, and it has to be a choice. And it's not something that anybody else can coerce you into. And it's a question of what are your priorities. And there are a lot of people who will say that Christianity is a crutch for the weak. And I don't believe that at all. I've been through some horrendously awful things, and I've had horrendously joyful times, and my faith has remained constant throughout. And so I think I feel privileged to have a faith conviction and to be able to give a reason for the hope that I have. But I recognize that for some people, they are either numb to the possibility or haven't been given the opportunity. So, yeah, that's my take.
ということで今回の動画はこちらで以上になります。イギリス国教会の衰退についてでした。最後までご視聴いただきありがとうございます。